Hey friends, what's going on? Hope you're doing well today, and thank you for all of the responses and feedback, opinions, and thoughts regarding some of the videos that I've had loaded. Call this follow-up part 2, as it is. I don't edit a lot of my videos, and I can film all day long because that's what I do. I'm recording this one on my DJI mic, so if you can compare this sound of my voice in the system to the previous update video, then you can tell how much of a difference there is in the device microphones. I wanted to just include the song that's playing because it's piano, and as I've heard from a number of my audio friends, that piano's is one of the more difficult instruments to reproduce. And I just had some thoughts about it, so I thought maybe I would just start a video and talk about my thoughts. As is the name of the channel and the platform called YouTube. So anything that an individual thinks of and wants to create for YouTube, you do it. That's how I'm going to do it. So the song that's playing, let me just call it up here on my iPad. Is Misty Tsuyoshi Yamamoto Trio. You see the name? That's what it is. Yeah, my buddy Jay has always said that piano's difficult to reproduce, and like we got to witness at the Toronto Audio Fest, the Burmester Room had a composer and a pianist there to perform live. Unfortunately, I missed it. I had a conflict in scheduling, so I wasn't in the room for that. But I'm sure he was, and it was the first time the composer performed in the city. I was trying to adjust my lights here. There we go. So, my thoughts on why piano of all instruments is difficult to reproduce is it's a percussion instrument, first of all. Percussion instruments are notorious for their attack, and in order to get an attack, a tone, and decay correct in a speaker, the drivers have to be able to respond very quickly to signal, meaning their dynamics has to be very high. In order to get high dynamics and not produce a lot of distortion requires a lot of clever engineering, such as, the Clarity 6.2s and a lot of other brands tout that having a lightweight tweeter, more responsive mid-ranges with better damping and resonance controls means they can produce higher attack rates and faster decay rates, meaning less distortion and faster responses. Not that the speed of sound is faster or that their hertz waves are faster. It's more about fast in terms of how quick is the diaphragm able to return to zero to reproduce accurate sound waves. There's a lot of stuff going on with piano. There's tones, there's an attack and decay, there's different areas of the piano that are going to make sounds. It's a big, large instrument, and it's complex because its resonant surfaces are many. The floor, the lid, the body of the piano, the strings itself. There's probably technical names for those things, but I don't know what they are. I just know what a piano does and what it has to do. So for something like the speaker cone and the tweeter to reproduce that sound quickly, one, it has to be lightweight, but it has to be under a high amount of control. So like in the magnetic sense, it has to be under a high BL rating, and a BL rating is just the magnetic flux across the gap in which a driver or a coil has to perform. The Clarities have this AMT tweeter, and I'm sure that the AMT tweeter is very capable. So I'm just today working on their toe in and out. Now, if you can see from my position, you can see the internal passive radiators, which means they are towed out slightly. And they're imaging wonderfully. Now, the microphones are a little bit ahead of where my ears are. If I'm going to give this song over as a sound demo, we all know by now that sound demos are not coming back very accurate. The room seems to have a lot more reverb that microphones pick up that my ears don't hear. I literally don't hear the reverb or the sound of my room when I'm sitting here because the front and back walls are damp. The side walls have this diffusion sort of thing across the whole middle of the room. And then the front and back of the room are all curtains. So I don't have the echo that the mic is picking up. I'm not sure where it's coming from in the recordings, but I don't hear it. All I hear is the sound of these tweeters, the sound of the speakers themselves. And they're pretty immediate. I mean, I even have pretty thick carpeted floors, so it's not like there's a lot of surfaces in here, except for directly side to side and a little bit from the ceiling. But this allows for there to be height in the soundstage. I don't have a lot of depth because that wall is soft. So the highest frequencies are not being produced or reproduced or bouncing off of that surface. Now I'm just going to play the song over again because I don't want to deal with two copyright. And I'm not quite done my point. So the idea of piano and speakers being higher performers, let's say the Canto YU5s and what they're made out of, their drivers, the expense that they spent on it. The monoliths had some help with a really high-profile designer. SVS has been doing their thing for a number of years, so it's nice to see their at least second generation or iteration of the Ultra series. The Bucart Audio, KEF R3 Metas, and Clarities are in a different range of engineering as far as I'm concerned. I think a lot of people would agree with me that the SVS, Canto, and Monolith are in this budget sort of lower range, which is great because they can do most of what these can do, right? One of the comments on my previous video was that the recording isn't good enough to pick up the differences that really matter. And I agree with them because after hearing the video, I thought, well, shit, I spent 4 hours of my day or more trying to record all of that stuff. And then I spent another 3 or 4 hours editing it all together with all the timestamps and all the writing. And I mean, some people appreciate it for what it is, and I thank you for telling me that. And some people are rightly criticizing it because it isn't good enough. I know that. I did it more because it's an opportunity for some to compare where it's not easy. Steve Guttenberg just did a video on the Clarity 6.2s. Now he is the 4th or 5th person that I know in the English language that have covered them. Perhaps only the 4th. I can't remember the name of the gentleman that's in Europe that did it. He did a 2 or 3 part video with measurements and microphones and amazing video. Aaron's Audio Corner measured them as well. I've had them for a little while. Steve Guttenberg just had his opinion posted online. So there's a lot to talk about, and I believe what he's saying. I can mirror his sentiments. They have an incredible depth. Their tweeter, the AMT tweeter, and the proprietary waveguide. Let me zoom in on it. The music goes up in volume. Those fins really help with the dispersion characteristics in front of the AMT. So when you turn it off axis, these blades are still straight and they still direct the sound out to the sides. So even though I'm off axis, it's going to have the same, almost same profile, which is counter to the measurements that Aaron got. Aaron's measurements showed that as the frequency gets higher, the directivity goes down, which is interesting even though it has fins. So it was done on purpose, from what I recall. The narrowing of directivity in the high frequency means that your highest frequencies won't be as wide of an angle. So some of the lower treble mid-range will go off to the sides, but the highest frequencies are still going to be on axis. And that's why when I'm sitting here, they're only really a couple of degrees towed out from my listening position. I had them more narrow, and I'm just trying them out and towing them out a little bit more. That's how this hobby is. Try something, move it a little bit again, move it a little bit more, listen to this song, listen to that song, and just experiment. I want to encourage people, even though my video came back and the sound samples didn't do so great, or they didn't reflect as much as I hoped that they would, it still shows that I'm willing to experiment, and it still gives an example of what one type of microphone can reveal for these speakers. A lot of people said that the A10 speakers and the Kefs were a close first and second, and the clarities didn't quite make that or in that third position compared to these. Now, these have their own issues, I agree. I think part of the recording process is that the dB meter wasn't exactly accurate across all of them. I'd have to go back and double check all of that. But I have a feeling that they were lower in volume, and they were all pretty low. Let's face it, 70 dB in my room isn't exactly high or reference. I could have had them up at 75 and it would have sounded different. That's how frequency and loudness works, especially with the microphones. They might have been more able to capture the sound of the speaker rather than recording the sound of the reverb of my room. Now, I'm listening to them right now at about the same volume as the previous demo on the volume dial. I don't know what the dB rating is based on the music, but it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, they still sound really great. I have the subs on with them today. That's my first confession. I do have the subs on today. The reason why I have the subs on is because my room is really boomy in one position. So I have the subs turned on, crossed over at 70 now instead of 40. And I've got the phase shifted to 75 degrees, which pulls the boominess out and gives me more of the upper bass range. So it has this countering effect for my room. That's why I have them, not to help with their depth, maybe only a touch, but it's more to balance out how the bass is not even in my space. Right now it sounds great. These are working together in an amazing way in my room. My room is only 10.2 inches by 13 front to back by 8-foot ceilings. Now people can calculate what frequencies are going to stand out in that space by the measurements, and you'd be right. There's a window well there, there's an open door back to my left, and there's a closet to my right. So it's not an ideal space. So it has problems, and that's why I'm using it. But anyways, let this stand in as another sound demo, my opinions, my follow-up, my thoughts on types of recordings and sounds. And I wish you well. I want to say thank you again for all the feedback. And I'm looking forward to hearing more from these in the future. Hopefully, I can hear more from you in the future as well as that song comes to the end for a second time. It's only Saturday. I have one more day to figure out what I feel like doing, if I'm going to do any kind of reviews or demos. I may want to do these a little bit more justice and record some B-roll, but I don't like editing all that much. So if I do, it'll be a shorter one, hopefully. I'm learning about them before I give my final thoughts. That's the truth. The truth is I enjoy them. They sound great. I can hear what they're really all about in the right positions. You'll notice I didn't move my towers out of here. They're not further back in the room to reinforce that base, and they're also not at the right listening distance. Right now, they're about 7 feet, and I am 7 feet from them, so it's an equilateral triangle, which I think is about fair. That's the best that I can give them for now. Now, if I learn and I read about something or I hear others say something about them, and some of the others, I still have a lot of other bookshelves here that I've been swapping out for comparison in sound depth, sound staging, sound depth, the bass response in all of them, how they pair with the subs per se. I'm still learning a lot about them. And I guess that's the truth of all of these reviews. The difference is I talk about my whole journey as it happens, and a lot of other people have this stuff for months, and then after 2 or 3 months, they tell you what you think, and it's all one video. I happen to be just telling you about all of my steps and progress in every video, almost on a regular basis. So, anyways, that's enough for me. I've been rambling. My phones have been charging. I might go live online. This video will get posted either before or after. I'm not really sure. But thank you for watching and following up with me a second time for the Clarity 6.2s and covering a lot of the opinions and feedback that I've been getting. So I agree with most people. I appreciate that a lot have been respectful in their opinions. That means a lot. That means a lot more than my getting the video right. The community building is important, and I appreciate all those who have spoken up. So I'm also glad that people are starting to hear them out in the world. That's a really good thing. They are quite amazing speakers. I do appreciate what they have done with this design. I spoke to Mads Buchard. He commented on a video. People have said that the A10 performed the best in that video. So there is a passive version with purified drivers out now. It's called the E50 model, Buchard Audio. Maybe I'll get a pair and I can compare these to the E50s. I don't know how possible that's going to be, but I'm going to ask, and why not? Why wouldn't I ask? This is a joy to do, and I'm happy to do it for my audience. Okay, that's enough for me. Thank you. Have a great Saturday night. I'll see you in the future.